to thank everybody for coming tonight. We have Thomas Spitaleri from Lawrence Community Access Television here. Thomas is kind enough to come. We've been working with them over the last couple of years, and we've had great success. We did 5 videos with them last year that was, they came out spectacular, so I'm very grateful to him. He's here tonight taping this. And we have Mr. Terry Gate from the Eagle Tribune, who's here tonight to cover the event. And the reason this event is so important, and Rich Gorham, it's his event, he's going to take over now, is because it takes people from the community and it lets them express themselves in poetry. And there's not many places for that, okay? And I'm very proud of him for keeping this going every year. And I'm proud of the Frost Foundation for keeping themselves going every year. It gets harder and harder. But I want to thank all of you for coming tonight. The only caveat I have tonight is because the taping changes in the production, we can't put credits underneath your name, your face anymore, because it takes too much time to edit. So what I want you to do is, Rich is going to introduce you formally, and if you would just announce yourself, your name clearly, and who you are, so we don't have to put anything on the tape. We don't have the budget for that, and we don't have the people for that. We don't have anybody to do that. All right? So enunciate yourself. And again, thank you for coming tonight. I know that we're trying to keep our culture alive, and it's very important that you're here. So thank you. And Richard Gorman, teacher from Lawrence High School, is going to take over. And he does a great job over there, and we want to give him a nice round of applause. Thank you, Rich.
Thank you, Harry.
You're welcome.
And it takes all of us. Good evening. Welcome to the 2024 Robert Frost Foundation Community Read. My name is Richard Gorham. I serve on the board of the Robert Frost Foundation, and I teach English at Lawrence High School. On behalf of the foundation, I'd also like to thank the Lawrence Public Library and its staff for hosting us tonight. They've hosted our events many times, and their staff is always welcoming and greets us with hospitality and gives us anything we need, and we appreciate it. This event was actually started a number of years ago. I should have an exact number, but I don't. It's somewhere around 10, by our former executive director of the Frost Foundation, Mark Shore. So one evening, Mark called me up and he said, Rich, you're going to come with me to this event. And when Mark says you're going to come with him to an event, you go. So Mark Shore and I drove into Boston to see the Evening of Inspired Leaders, which was an event started by Robert Pinsky, former Poet Laureate of the United States, in conjunction with Massachusetts Poetry Foundation. And that evening, the Evening of Inspired Leaders, brought together 10 leaders from the city of Boston, each of whom read a poem which had inspired them, including the City of Boston's police chief, a surgeon from Mass General Hospital, the director of the Roxbury Community Center, and other folks who you might not necessarily think are lovers of poetry, but each one of them read a poem that had inspired them. The Boston police chief read The Wreck of the Hesperus, which he said he kept tacked above his desk for 40 years as Boston police chief. And it was quite inspirational, thinking about a way to honor how poetry impacts the lives of folks in ways that sometimes we don't recognize. And on the drive home, Mark Shore looked at me and said, we need to do this in Lawrence. And he was right. And so here we are. So each year for the last several years, we invite leaders from the city of Lawrence to come to read a poem which has inspired them. And thank you all for being here and doing so. So we hope to hear a poem from everybody tonight. We come together as lovers of poetry, which I suggest makes us, by definition, lovers of humanity, and nurtures the best empathies in all of us. Tonight, I'm thinking of folks who are enduring brutal wars in the Middle East and the Congo. I think of folks in the path of Hurricane Milton who are suffering. And I think of the many, many others who continue to seek justice in a world where it is too often denied. I think of those folks, and I also think of the joys that poetry brings us, the joys of the fall season that we're in, the love of friends and families, and the myriad opportunities for laughter that life offers us. And poetry helps us be in touch with all of the above. Each of this evening's readers is a leader in the Merrimack Valley and a lover of poetry, and we're glad that each one of you is here. I'll get things started by reading a poem myself, and this is a poem that I return to time and time again. It's my favorite poem to teach, and it's a poem that echoes in my soul, particularly the final couplet. And I honestly think about this poem at least once a day my entire life. And it's John Keats's Ode on a Grecian Urn. Thou still unravished bride of quietness, thou foster child of silence and slow time, sylvan historian who canst thus express a flowery tale more sweetly than our rhyme. What leaf-fringed legend haunts about thy shape of deities or mortals or of both, in Tempe or the dales of Arcady? What men or gods are these? What maidens loath? What mad pursuit? What struggle to escape? What pipes and timbrels? What wild ecstasy? Heard melodies are sweet, but those unheard are sweeter. Therefore, ye soft pipes, play on, not to the sensual ear, but more endeared, pipe to the spirit ditties of no tone. Fair youth, beneath the trees, thou canst not leave thy song, nor ever can those trees be bare. Bold lover, never, never canst thou kiss, though winning near the goal yet. Do not grieve, she cannot fade, though thou hast not thy bliss. Forever wilt thou love, and she be fair. And happy, happy boughs that cannot shed your leaves, nor ever bid spring adieu, and happy melodist unwearied, forever piping songs forever new. More happy love, more happy, happy love, forever warm and still to be enjoyed, forever panting and forever young. All breathing human passion far above, that leaves a heart high sorrowful and cloyed, a burning forehead and a parching tongue. Who are these coming to the sacrifice? To what green altar, O mysterious priest, leadest thou that heifer lowing at the skies, and all her silken flanks with garlands dressed? What little town by river or seashore or mountain built with peaceful citadel is emptied of this folk, this pious morn? And little town, thy streets forevermore will silent be, and not a soul to tell why thou art desolate can e'er return. O Attic shape, fair attitude, with breed of marble men and maidens overwrought, with foreign branches and trodden weed, thou silent form dost tease us out of thought as doth eternity, cold pastoral. When old age shall this generation waste, thou shalt remain, in midst of other woe than ours, a friend to man to whom thou sayest, beauty is truth, truth beauty, that is all ye know on earth, and all ye need to know. And with that, I'd introduce Mark LaPlante from the Lawrence City Council.
Thank you, Mr. Gorham. Appreciate that. Again, I want to just send my thank you for the invitation this evening and to be a part of this group and to share, if it's okay, 2 short poems that particularly struck me this year. My name is Mark LaPlante on the Lawrence City Council, in case I didn't say that before. So I'll read the first one. They're both entitled the same. And it's a little bit of the opposite of where you and Mr. Gorham. This is talking about maybe the darker side that we're dealing with, and they're both entitled Auschwitz. The semi-quaver chugging of the train on the track, and the people on board who will never go back, and the terror in the eyes of all the young ones to go with no one knowing as the train comes to slow. Those men at the station as the ramps drop down where humanity is lost is the only crippled sound. Hope gone for those who stand behind the hard, sharp wire, and the smoke in the tower rises just a little higher. And the blue ink stabs a little harder in the skin. Above the veins of despair where murder let it in, and the terror in the eyes of all those about to leave another train on the track, no last-minute reprieve, and the slow, crotchet chugging of the train on the track, and the people on board who will never go back. I chose Auschwitz for a reason. On both of them, I went to Poland this summer with my family. We went to Krakow, and we were supposed to go in 2020. Things happened in 2020. Plans get changed, and so we made the trip this year in 2024. And there's never a good way to describe a place like Auschwitz. So I want to say highlight, but it's not a highlight. I'm glad I went, but I'm not glad I went. So there's never, our language does not really reflect, because it could be so misconstrued. So please take it in stride as what I'm about to say. But it was a place that I thought it was important to go. And we went, we read a lot, saw plenty of movies and shows and documentaries. And one a seminal event that took place not far away from here, not that long ago from here, took place. And I thought it was important that we saw that firsthand, especially as we honor the veterans and the military members and all the other stuff that we do here in this country, and understand how important and how tragic that event was. And as the poets say, never again. Which leads me to my second poem. And this one is by Arthur Seymour Joseph, who he wrote this poem after he visited Auschwitz in 1955. This ground has kept its secret. As a sheet covers a corpse, so time and grass have conspired to mask the crimes committed here. The earthen mouth that devoured the dead is now green blanketed with daisy patches. Yet we know from the rusting barbed wire fences, the squalid barracks, the brick wall chipped with bullet holes, the showers, the ovens, a mountain of shoes, men's shoes, women's shoes, children's shoes, work shoes, dress shoes, black, brown, white, worn and new. Outside, the flowers and the sweetened breeze belie what went before. Our guide, older than his years, when bidding us goodbye, his eyes welled up with tears, and through his quivering lips, he said, "No more of this, no more." Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. We now welcome Gail Heaney, two-time Poet Laureate of North Andover.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks to the Robert Frost Foundation for the invitation. I am Gail Heaney, a two-time Poet Laureate of North Andover, and I am happy to be here, but I am moved by what Mark LaPlante said, given what we know, watching the news every day, of the things that are happening in Israel, in Gaza, in Ukraine. So it's such a sadness that we keep revisiting what needs to be stopped. So I'd like to tell you about the poem that moved me back over 20 years ago. It was written by a Brit. Her name is Julia Copus, and she published a poem in a book called The Shuttered Eye back in 1995. And the poem is called The Backseat of My Mother's Car, and it introduced me to a brand new form of poetry. And as a poet, the idea of coming up with a brand new form of poetry, I mean, that's kind of amazing. And so I looked her up, and this is her work. It's called The Backseat of My Mother's Car. The form is specular, which in Latin means mirror, because the first verse, I'll read it to you, and then the second verse is a repetition of the first, except you read the last line first the second to last line, second. So I only have the first verse, and now I have to read it from bottom to top for the second verse. So again, it's specular. It's called Julia Copus. Her work is the back seat of my mother's car. We left before I had time to comfort you and tell you that we nearly touched hands in the vacuous half-dark. I wanted to stem the burning waters running over me like tiny rivers down my face and legs. But at the same time, I was reaching out for the slit in the window where the sky streamed in cold as ether. And I could see your fat mole fingers grasping the dusty August air. I pressed my face to the glass. I was calling, "Daddy!" as we screeched away into the distance, my own hand tingling like an amputation. You were mouthing something I still remember, the noiseless words piercing me like the catgut shriek that flew up, furious as a sunset, pouring itself out against the sky. The ensuing silence was the one clear thing I could decipher, the roar of the engine drowning your voice with the cool, slick glass between us. With the cool, slick glass between us, the roar of the engine drowning your voice was the one clear thing I could decipher. The ensuing silence pouring itself out against the sky, furious as a sunset, piercing me like the catgut shriek that flew up. You were mouthing something I still remember, the noiseless words, the distance, my own hand tingling like an amputation. I was calling you, "Daddy!" as we screeched away into the dusty August air. I pressed my face to the glass, cold as ether, and I could see your fat mole fingers grasping for the slit in the window where the sky streamed in. Rivers down my face and legs, but at the same time I was reaching out to stem the burning waters running over me like tiny hands in the vacuous, cold dark. I wanted to comfort you, to tell you that we nearly touched. We left before I had time. So again, this is Julia Copus. The new form is called Specular, and I actually went to England to interview the poet for my television show right now, and it was such a wonderful opportunity to be in the land, in England, having, that British tea, and to talk about what motivated her to write this. And it's about a young girl, and her parents are having a divorce. And so the mother is driving away, and the kid is in the back seat trying to reach the dad, and the glass separates them. So something about that just really spoke to me. And I'm hoping that we in this election cycle can somehow get through that glass that is keeping neighbor from neighbor and family member from family member. Let's try to reach through the slit in the window and all be Americans again. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. And despite my typographical error in the program, Mark Bohr is the director of the North Andover Poets Corner, I believe. Posey is English, and a person who you will see reading poetry in every corner of the Merrimack Valley, near as I can tell. Mark Bohr.
Yes, my name is Mark Bohr, and I'm past Poet Laureate of North Andover. Sometimes it is with these little errors that get introduced that new things come into being. I've written many poems where I misheard something, and a phrase came to me. So I thank you for the opportunity. Life, words, layers, echoes, threads, words, life. In the beginning is life. In the beginning is the word. For a poet, it's not possible to separate life and the word. They're inextricable, interwoven, intersecting, inescapable, one thing. Like life, words speak to us with layers, echoes, and threads. Layers that mean many different things at once as you sift through the different meanings that the words can carry on repeat readings. Echoes that carry the sounds of other words, other ideas, other people, all people within the sound of the words. Threads that connect the words to other words, other people, other places, other times, all times. The woven fabric of sense that we all carry with us that connects us to the present, the past, and the future. Words are not owned, they are the fabric of connection. Words connect us to one another, whether we think about it all the time or not. Words are the tree of life, and like a tree, the words that we speak come from a common source. There is only one human language, after all. Inescapable, inextricable, interwoven, one thing, our common being, words, life. I'm here to read a poem that speaks to me. The words of this poem are filled with layers, echoes, threads, life. The poem that I've picked is Song of the Open Road by Walt Whitman, and it first appeared in Whitman's 1856 collection, Leaves of Grass, and hearing some of the things said tonight, 1856 was a time that we were heading towards the Civil War. They didn't know it. You know, the division was there. And yet this poem is so optimistic and so positive. And so I guess I return to that as, and that's the reason why I love this poem so much, is because no matter what happens, no matter how I feel, when I read this poem and I think of this poem, I'm lifted up. Here we go. These are verses from Song of the Open Road by Walt Whitman. Afoot and lighthearted, I take to the open road, healthy, free, the world before me, the long brown path before me, leading wherever I choose. Henceforth I ask not good fortune, I myself am good fortune. Henceforth I whimper no more, postpone no more, need nothing. Done with indoor complaints, libraries, querulous criticisms, strong and content, I travel the open road. The earth, that is sufficient. I do not want the constellations any nearer. I know they are very well where they are. I know they suffice for those who belong to them. You, road, I enter upon and look around. I believe you are not all that is here. I believe that much unseen is also here. The earth expanding, right hand and left hand. The picture alive, every part in its best light. The music falling in where it is wanted and stopping where it is not wanted. The cheerful voice of the public road, the gay, fresh sentiment of the road. I think heroic deeds were all conceived in the open air, and all free poems also. I think I could stop here myself and do miracles. I think whatever I shall meet on the road, I shall like, and whoever beholds me shall like me. I think whoever I see must be happy. From this hour, I ordain myself loosed of limits and imaginary lines, going where I list, my own master, total and absolute. Listening to others, considering well what they say, pausing, searching, receiving, contemplating, gently but with undeniable will, divesting myself of the holds that would hold me. I inhale great draughts of space. The east and the west are mine. The north and the south are mine. I am larger, better than I thought. I did not know I held so much goodness. All seems beautiful to me. I can repeat over to men and women, you have done such good to me, I would do the same to you. I will recruit for myself and you as I go. I will scatter myself among men and women as I go. I will toss a new gladness and roughness among them. Whoever denies me, it shall not trouble me. Whoever accepts me, he or she shall be blessed and shall bless me. Here is the test of wisdom. Wisdom is not finally tested in schools. Wisdom cannot be passed from one having it to another not having it. Wisdom is of the soul. It is not susceptible to proof. It is its own proof. Applies to all stages and objects and qualities and is content. Is the certainty of the reality and the immortality of things and the excellence of things. Somewhere there is in the float of the sight of things that provokes it out of the soul. Allons, whoever you are, come travel with me. Traveling with me, you find what never tires. The earth never tires. The earth is rude, silent, incomprehensible at first. Nature is rude, incomprehensible at first. Be not discouraged. Keep on. There are divine things well enveloped. I swear to you, there are divine things more beautiful than words can tell. Allons, we must not stop here. However sweet these laid-up stores, however convenient this dwelling, we cannot remain here. However sheltered this port, and however calm these waters, we must not anchor here. However welcome the hospitality that surrounds us, we are permitted to receive it but a little while. Allons, the road is before us. It is safe. I have tried it. My own feet have tried it well. Be not detained. Let the paper remain on the desk unwritten, and the book on the shelf unopened. Let the tools remain in the workshop. Let the money remain unearned. Let the school stand. Mind not the cry of the teacher. Let the preacher preach in his pulpit. Let the lawyer plead in the court, and the judge expound the law. Camarado, I give you my hand. I give you my love more precious than money. I give you myself before preaching or law. Will you give me yourself? Will you come travel with me? Shall we stick by each other as long as we live? Gets me every time.
Thank you, Mark. We now welcome Karen Klein of the Robert Frost Foundation and many, many other roles.
I'm not sure if this was planned, but the two people before were my people. I'm from North Andover and a poet laureate. And I have to talk to you quickly about the Valley of the Poets. Some people know about it, other people don't. I have decided that we are living in the Valley of the Poets, and it is North Andover, Fran Bradstreet, John Greenleaf Whittier for Haverhill, Harriet Beecher Stowe for Andover, and she did write poetry. And then the last, of course, is Bob Frost. So I'm going to read Fire and Ice. Some say the world will end in fire. Some say in ice. From what I've tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if I had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to know that for destruction, ice is also great and would suffice. Elements: the elements, look at what happened with the elements this week and the week before this in the south and in the mid states, which were a total surprise. Nobody ever thought Helene would hang left instead of hanging right. We have no control over that. We have to control what we can control and then write poetry about the rest. I also saw a lady just before I left to come here whose father lived across the street from me. He passed away in January, and Lauren is back and forth from both Newburyport and Plum Island, taking care of the house and getting things together. So I talked with her, and she said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going over to do a Robert Frost poetry reading." She said, "Oh, I went to the school." I said, "You're kidding. I've never met anybody who went to the Frost School in South Lawrence." And I said, "Wow, really? What? How long ago?" And she said, "Well, I was there when he dedicated it." I said, "Really, Lauren? You're really special." So she explained to me that she really liked the whole event. And I said, "What did you notice about him?" And she said, "His hair." She never forgot the hair. And I just wrote here, January 7th, 1962, Lauren remembered his bright white shock of hair. He had not only a lovely poem, The Tuft of Flowers, but also a healthy tuft of hair, which was very true. And if you recall the inaugural in January of 1961 in the wind, I mean, I don't like my hair, but I can't even imagine what it must have been like with everything blowing all over everywhere. And he couldn't even read the poem, not because of the wind, but because the sunlight was hitting it. And he couldn't read the pages. So he had to go to another poem, which that's really awfully talented to be able to do that in the middle of a place like Washington, D.C.'s inauguration of John F. Kennedy. Amazing. The other one I'm going to read, I don't see anybody here. Well, I see one person new who doesn't know me, maybe two, and hasn't heard the poem. I say I don't really want to do it anymore because I always do it, and I thought it was so boring. And then people said, "Oh no, it's a classic." Okay, since it's a classic for Harry and for Rich and Mark and Debbie and everybody else who knows it. To My Dear Children by Anne Bradstreet. This book by Annie, yet unread. Oh my gosh. I leave for you when I am dead, that being gone, here you may find what was your living mother's mind. Make use of what I leave in love, and God shall bless you from above. It is so simple, it's so valuable, and I use it as a teaching tool in schools everywhere because the fourth line, what was your living mother's mind, is crucial. There's a word missing, and all the kids love to try to figure out what that word is. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And thank you, as always, for keeping the flame of Anne Bradstreet burning. It's important. It's important. We are honored to have as our next reader from Groundwork Lawrence, George Hernandez.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. If you will grant me the kindness, I do have two that I'd like to share this evening. I don't think that we necessarily need to look too far to look at things that need to be changed or things that need to be paid attention to. We just need to look here within our community and the people of our community, people that provide for us, and the land itself. The first poem is The Elements of San Joaquin by Gary Soto. For Cesar Chavez. Field. The wind sprays pale dirt into my mouth, the small, almost invisible scars on my hands. The pores in my throat and elbows have taken in a seed of dirt of their own. After a day in the grape fields near Rolinda, a fine silt, washed by sweat, has settled into the lines on my wrists and palms. Already I am becoming the valley, a soil that sprouts nothing for any of us. Wind. A dry wind over the valley, peeled mountains grain by grain to small slopes, loose dirt where red ants tunnel. The wind strokes the skulls and spines of cattle to white dust, to nothing. Covers the spiked tracks of beetles, of tumbleweed, of sparrows that pecked the ground for insects. Evenings, when I am in the yard weeding, the wind picks up the breath of my armpit like dust, swirls it miles away, and drops it on the ear of a rabid dog, and I take on another life. Wind. When you got up this morning, the sun blazed an hour in the sky. A lizard hid under the curled leaves of manzanita and winked in its dark lids. Later, the sky grayed, and the cold wind you breathed was moving under your skin and already far from the small hives of your lungs. Stars. At dusk, the first stars appear. Not one eager finger points towards them. A little later, the stars spread with the night, and an orange moon rises to lead them, like a shepherd toward dawn. Sun. In June, the sun is a bonner of light, coming up, little by little, from behind a skyline of pine. The pastures away with fiddle neck, tassels of foxtail. At Piedra, a couple fish on the river's edge, their shadows deep against the water, above in the stubbled slopes. Cows climb down as the heat rises in a mist of blonde locusts, returning to the valley. Rain. When the autumn rains flatten sycamore leaves, the tiny volcanoes of dirt, ants raised around their holes, I should be out of work. My silverware and stack of plates will go unused. Like the old, my 2 good slacks will smother under a growth of lint and smell of the old dust that rises when the closet door opens or closes. The skin of my belly will tighten like a belt, and there will be no reason for pockets. Harvest. Each of the suns slant in the vineyard that never failed, a wind crossed my face, moving the dust and a portion of my voice a step closer to a new year. The sky went black in the 9th hour of rolling trays. In the distance, ropes of rain dropped to pull me from the thick harvest that was not mine. Fog. If you go to your window, you will notice a fog drifting in. The sun is no stronger than a flashlight. Not all the sweaters hung in closets all summer. Could soak up this mist, the fog, a mouth nibbling everything to its origin. Pomegranate trees, stolen bicycles, the string of lights at a used car lot, a Pontiac with scorched valves. In Fresno, the fog is passing, the young thief prying a window screen, graying my hair that falls and goes unfound, my fingerprints slowly growing a fur of dust. 100 years from now, there should be no reason to believe I lived. Daybreak. In this moment, when the light starts up in the east and rubs the horizon until it catches fire, we enter the fields to hoe, row after row, among the small flags of onion, waving off the dragonflies that ladder the air. and tears the onions. Rays do not begin in your eyes, but in ours, in the salt blown from one blister into another. They begin in knowing you will never awaken to bear the hour timed to a heartbeat, the wind pressing us closer to the ground. When the season ends and the onions are unplugged from their sleep, we won't forget what you failed to see, and nothing will heal under the rain's broken fingers. And the second poem that I will share with you, you will be able to find either under a much shorter title, simply Land Acknowledgement, or the longer title, A Poem to Acknowledge that the land itself, along with the people whose language, culture, and religion were born of it, is rarely acknowledged. This is by C. Marie Furman. Let us pause for a moment and acknowledge the land on which we live. This is the traditional land of the Nimpu, Tukadeka. We should take another moment to acknowledge the ways Indigenous people are being removed and erased from the land they've stewarded for over 16,000 years. Swiftly, brutally, culturally, fatally. Let us acknowledge that soldiers for the United States killed women and children because they were Native. Let us acknowledge the recentness of this. Let us acknowledge the Native people buried in their land without markers, while unnamed settlers rest in fenced graves. Let us acknowledge Indian graves dug up and looted. Let us acknowledge that place names like Squaw Meadows and Dead Indian do not honor ancestors. Let us take a moment and acknowledge that this land was not stolen from the people whose language, culture, and religion was born of it. Let us acknowledge that the people were stolen from this land. The people who celebrate this land with song, dance, ceremony, people who do not commodify and commercialize trees and water or call it resource. Here, we pause to acknowledge that the land itself is rarely acknowledged. The land buried beneath asphalt, cement, floorboards, and foundations. Let us acknowledge that this buried land, which once grew food and medicine, now grows dollar stores and subdivisions. Let us acknowledge the land in the way subdividers do, with the blade of the bulldozer, and with names like Forest Trails, Aspen Ridge, River Ranch, with words the way the government recognizes only federally recognized tribes and has taught some natives to recognize others only on paper, through blood quantum and CIB, instead of commitment to rights and sovereignty. Let us recognize land acknowledgements that serve as consolation, another box checked on a list titled Due Diligences. The way wearing a Black Lives Matter t-shirt acknowledges white wokeness, while the same whites shop at white lives businesses. Acknowledgement as performative allyship. Let us acknowledge the internment camps were prisons. This land acknowledgement was written for the people who acknowledge land in the way spotted knapweed acknowledges it, the way a for sale sign acknowledges it, the way the Forest Service acknowledges land by stating hashtag, it's all yours, but meaning hashtag, it's not theirs. This statement acknowledges the land in the same way the media and FBI acknowledge the over 2,000 missing Native women and girls, by recognizing the one missing white woman for whom hundreds search and whose picture is present on all our screens. The way Native silhouettes are screened on paper to sell cigarettes. This land acknowledgement is inked on the heartwood of a pine that escaped the fires but fell for the mill, from a land that cannot help but acknowledge climate crisis and carrying capacities. The grizzly bear, fatally removed, and the salmon who can no longer reach their original homelands. This land acknowledges the wolves shot by stockmen and sportsmen to preserve the animals. Stockmen and sportsmen will then henceforth kill in the name of husbandry and sport. Let us acknowledge how we honor loss with dollars and not grief. Let us make depredation a science and pay officers from the Bank of Conservation. Let us acknowledge the words used to disassociate: kill, killer, killing, killed, from the act of execution. This land acknowledges that it is recognized for its monetary value, recreational value, and aesthetic value, because it too is living. This land recognizes us by our carbon footprint, our clear cuts, our gold mines, and our greed. This acknowledges that land back means languages back, means medicine back, means ceremony back, means culture back, means reparations, means people depend on the land. Let us acknowledge that unless action is taken to identify and empower Indigenous peoples, erase inaccurate history from every school curriculum, carry out land-based justice and climate change policy, a land acknowledgement is a perfunctory, alienating, and an otherwise hollow gesture. Acknowledgement means acceptance, admittance. Acknowledgement is a dead word, is not a verb, is not deed, does not mean education. Acknowledgement means too late for an apology. Read me your declaration of change. Detail your plan of procedure. Show me your map to equality. And then, just maybe then, I might be convinced that your land acknowledgement is not but another broken treaty.
Thank you, George. Appreciate you. Our next reader always reminds me of the joy of poetry. Her day job is collections manager at the Lawrence History Center, Amita Kiley.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me back. I'm Amita Kiley, Collections Manager and Research Coordinator at the Lawrence History Center. I'm also a trustee of the White Fund and the Lawrence Public Library, which are new since the last time I was here. The poem I picked is called Don't Quit, and I couldn't figure out who was written by, if it was John Greenleaf Whittier or Edgar A. Guest. And I had come across it sometime over the last year, and I took a screenshot of it, and I forgot I did that. But when I was looking through my pictures recently, I came across it, and I liked it. I still liked it, but I couldn't figure out who wrote it. But it led me to look into John Greenleaf Whittier's poetry as well. So I think I'm going to read two. I'll read Don't Quit, and then I'll read Maud Muller by John Greenleaf Whittier. Don't Quit is kind of on the theme of hope and to just keep trying, even though it seems so trying right now and hard with the political climate, the economic climate, the literal climate, and just everything that's going on. So this poem is kind of will give hope. So when things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to smile but you have to sigh, when care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but don't you quit. Life is strange with its twists and turns, as every one of us sometimes learns, and many a failure turns about when we might have won had we stuck it out. Don't give up, though the pace seems slow. You may succeed with another blow. Success is failure turned inside out, the silver tint of the clouds of doubt. And you never can tell how close you are. It may be near when it seems so far. So stick to the fight when you're hardest hit. It's when things seem worse that you must not quit. Thank you. And that poem led me to finding this one, Maud Muller, which I hadn't read before, but I heard one of the last lines in it before, which led me to this poem. Maud Muller on a summer's day raked the meadow sweet with hay. Beneath her torn hat glowed the wealth of simple beauty and rustic health. Singing, she wrought in her merry glee, the mockbird echoed from his tree. But when she glanced to the far-off town, white from its hill slope looking down, the sweet song died, and a vague unrest and a nameless longing filled her breast, a wish that she hardly dared to own for something better than she had known. The judge rode slowly down the lane, smoothing his horse's chestnut mane. He drew his bridle in the shade of the apple trees to greet the maid, and asked a draught from the spring that flowed through the meadow across the road. She stooped where the cool spring bubbled up and filled for him her small tin cup, and blushed as she gave it, looking down on her feet so bare in her tattered gown. "Thanks," said the judge. A sweeter draught from a fairer hand was never quaffed. He spoke of the grass and flowers and trees, of the singing birds and the humming bees, then talked of the haying and wondered whether the cloud in the west would bring foul weather. And Maud forgot her brier-torn gown and her graceful ankles bare and brown, and listened while a pleased surprise looked from her long-lashed hazel eyes. At last, like for one who delay seeks a vain excuse, he rode away. Maud Muller looked and sighed. Ah me, that I the judge's bride might be. He would dress me up in silk so fine, and praise and toast me at his wine. My father should wear a broadcloth coat, my brother should sail a painted boat. I'd dress my mother so grand and gay, and the baby should have a new toy each day. And I'd feed the hungry and clothe the poor, and all should bless me who left our door. The judge looked back as he climbed the hill, and saw Maud Muller standing still. A form more fair, a face more sweet, never hath it been my lot to meet. And her modest answer and graceful air show her wise and good as she is fair. Would she were mine and I today, like her, a harvester of hay. No doubtful balance of rights and wrongs, nor weary lawyers with endless tongues, but low of cattle and song of birds, and health and quiet and loving words. But he thought of his sisters proud and cold, and his mother vain of her rank and gold. So, closing his heart, the judge rode on, and Maud was left in the field alone. But the lawyers smiled that afternoon when he hummed in court an old love tune, and the young girl mused beside the well till the rain on the unraked clover fell. He wedded a wife of richest dower, who lived for fashion as he for power. Yet oft in his marble hearth's bright glow, he watched a picture come and go, and sweet Maud Muller's hazel eyes looked out in their innocent surprise. Oft, when the wine in his glass was red, he longed for the wayside well instead, and closed his eyes on his garnished rooms to dream of meadows and clover blooms. And the proud man sighed with a secret pain, "Ah, that I were free again, free as when I rode that day, where the barefoot maiden raked her hay. She wedded a man unlearned and poor, and many children played round her door. But care and sorrow and childbirth pain left their traces on heart and brain. And oft, when the summer sun shone hot on the new-mown hay in the meadow lot, and she heard the little spring brook fall over the roadside through the wall, in the shade of the apple tree again, she saw a rider draw his rein, and gazing down with timid grace, she felt his pleased eyes read her face. Sometimes her narrow kitchen walls stretched away into stately halls. The weary wheel to a spinet turned, the tallow candle an astral burned. And for him who sat by the chimney lug, dozing and grumbling over pipe and mug, a manly form at her side she saw, and joy was duty and love was law. Then she took up her burden of life again, saying only, "It might have been." Alas for maiden, alas for judge, for rich repiner and household drudge. God pity them both, and pity us all, who vainly the dreams of youth recall. For of all sad words of tongue or pen, the saddest are these, "It might have been." Ah, well, for us all some sweet hope lies, deeply buried from human eyes, and in the hereafter angels may roll the stone from its grave away.
Thank you, Amita. Our next reader is Peter Cody. Please. You're welcome. We'd be reading from there?
Yeah.
Great.
I haven't read from this book in a while, and I misjudged, so this is going to help me see.
Set the microphone here.
Okay.
Set the microphone's going to be picked up for the
All right.
television benefit.
And you just have to listen to my
Thank you, sir.
devastatingly hypnotic voice, and you don't have to see my face for this. Okay. I used to introduce students, social work students, master's students to meditation, and it was an essential skill because of the work we do. And they rolled their eyes and grumbled at first, but then if I would forget, they would stop me and demand 5 minutes of stillness. Okay. A lot of kind of natural themes, I thought, just coming out of the readings tonight. Given everything that's going on in the world, and I'm addicted to NPR and the BBC, and it's right there next to my nightstand, and it's too much. I have a friend at dialysis, and he's protect his privacy, but he's I like to practice what little Spanish I know. So I proudly said to him, "Buen dia," and he goes, "Buddy, I'm Lebanese." And so we became. He's hale, and he's a little older than me. And I watched the way he walked into the place. It's just like he just got done lifting wood or stone, whatever. And I'm hobbling in. So we got talking, and he was talking about, this is months ago, before everything hit the fan. And I watched him today, and it just struck me. This guy, he's white. His hair's gone white. I think in the last 2 months. So the world can be too much with us. And my heart goes out to him because I don't know him well enough, but I can't imagine what he's going through with family in Beirut right now. Okay, so I turned to Rumi for a little punch. He doesn't do anything calmly. So bear with me here. Let me do this. Okay. I have a history of philosophy and theology and psychology and poetry. I was getting closer to the source all the time, and I didn't know it. Okay, so Rumi shows a scholar writing the iconography, and it says, "This love is beyond the study of theology, that old trickery and hypocrisy. If you want to improve your mind that way, sleep on." Bear with me. "I've given up on my brain. I've torn the cloth to shreds and thrown it away. If you're not completely naked, wrap your beautiful robe of words around you and sleep." Okay, bear with me. Come to the orchard in spring. There is light and wine and sweethearts in the pomegranate. In the pomegranate flowers. If you do not come, these do not matter. If you do come, these do not matter. Oh, bear with me. Okay, this is the second one. I've used this many times. I love to see a client, or I was a therapist for 35 years, a client or a student, their jaw just drops. I hope it stands up. I hope your jaws drop. You probably are familiar with this one. "I have lived on the lip of insanity." Sometimes that was literally true in my office. "Wanting to know the reasons, knocking on a door. It opens. I've been knocking from the inside." It reminds me of another line from somewhere. "I give up all need to effort and struggle. I relax into things as they are, so that life may move through me with grace." And we give up the burden of trying to move gracefully through this wonderful nightmare of life and just let it center us. One more. This is, I would think, timely. I think I'm going to do this. "Not Christian or Jew or Muslim, not Hindu, Buddhist, Sufi, or Zen, not any religion or cultural system. I am not from the East or the West, not out of the ocean or up. From the ground, not natural or ethereal, not composed of elements at all. I do not exist. I am not an entity in this world or the next. Did not descend from Adam or Eve or any origin story. My place is the placeless, a trace of the traceless, neither body or soul. I belong to the beloved, have seen the two worlds as one, and that one call to and know. First, last, outer, inner, only that breath-breathing human being." Thank you. I thought I'd have mercy and not do the last book. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to make a very slight change to the program, and I'm going to ask, although Harry is listed as next, I'm going to ask him to hold and be our closing poet today. And I'll invite those who I failed to put in the program but who would like to read a poem to read a poem now. So, Kate, Linda, would you like to? To you, if you would like to. Bring it. Bring it.
Yeah, everyone else in the room has. So I came prepared with two poems to read. So again, for everyone who doesn't know, I'm Kate Hernandez, and I'm on the Frost Foundation board. So this morning, Han Kang was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature. She is the first South Korean to receive this honor, and her writing was listed as hailed as an intense poetic prose that confronts historical traumas and exposes the fragility of human life. And I think that pretty much encapsulates what we've been hearing about here tonight. And while her published works are more in long form in the form of novels, she does have a number of poems, and I wanted to share one tonight in a celebration of her accomplishments. So I've chosen Pitch Black House of Light. That day in Yedong, sleet fell, and my body, companion to my soul, shivered with each falling tear. Get on your way. Are you hesitating? What are you dreaming, hovering like that? 2-story houses lit like flowers, beneath them I learned agony. And towards a land of joy as yet untouched, foolishly reached out a hand. Get on your way. What are you dreaming? Keep walking. Toward memories forming on a street lamp I walked. There I looked up, and inside the light shade was a pitch black house of light. The sky was dark, and in that darkness, resident birds flew up, casting off the weight of their bodies. How many times would I have to die to fly like that? Nobody could hold my hand. What dream is so lovely? What memory shines so brightly? Sleet, like the tip of my mother's fingers, raked through my disheveled eyebrows, striking frozen cheeks and again stroking that same spot. Hurry up and get on your way. So then, with the theme of the idea of the poetry that inspires, and I thought of like one of my favorite songs is the Isle of Innisfree. And actually, having never been to Ireland myself, but still feeling a strong longing. But that song was actually based on the Lake Isle of Innisfree by Yeats. So let's read that. I will arise and go now, and go to Innisfree, and a small cabin built there of clay and wattles made. 9 bean rows will I have there, a hive for the honeybee, and live alone in the bee-loud glade. And I shall have some peace there, for peace comes dropping slow, dropping from the veil of the morning to where the cricket sings. There midnight's all a glimmer, and noon a purple glow, and evening full of the linnet's wings. I will arise and go now, for always night and day I hear lake water lapping with low sounds by the shore. While I stand on the roadway or on the pavement's gray, I hear it in the deep heart's core. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate, the newly elected president of the board of the Robert Frost Foundation, no less. Linda, would you like to read? You good? Okay. Debbie, please.
Do this.
Hi, my name's Debbie Bohr, and I'm from North Andover. Can you hear me well? Okay. I wasn't planning to read. I often don't read, but I wasn't planning to read tonight, but there was something on the drive here that spurred me. So there's always a meaningful poem, and maybe even more so now. I read it as a hopeful, prayerful reminder. This poem was written in 1883 by Emma Lazarus, The New Colossus. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land, here at our sea-washed, sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name, Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. Keep ancient lands, your storied pomp, cries she with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed, to me. I lift my lamp besides the golden door. Thanks.
I think we're ready for our closing act. Harry Durso, everybody.
Thank you. It now takes two people to get me out of a chair.
We're always here.
I know.
Are you one of them?
I'm not one of them. I want to, first of all, thank everybody for coming tonight. I'm going to be appearing locally. If you are interested, come and see me, and I'll tell you where I'm going to be. It's not going to be a secret, I'll tell you. But I want to keep this sacred tonight because it means so much to me what Rich does putting this together. Last night I was on an open mic in Rockport, and there was an emergency, and the host had to leave. We spent an hour running the show ourselves. 10 of the most learned, respected people I know spoke about fear for an hour. What does that say about what's going on in our country today? It was amazing. It was one of the most amazing experiences I had because we shouldn't be talking about fear. We should be talking about what we spoke about tonight, the truth. The truth is what's going to save us. And the truth is what every one of you did tonight was tell us the truth, okay? And that's how powerful this is. So I know it's hard to get here, and I know it's hard to get up and speak, but the truth will save us, okay? And I'd like to do this poem about Lawrence. I'm very fortunate. I have two poems with Amita at the Lawrence History Center, and the city of Lawrence means a lot to me. And hopefully this poem will resonate with people whether you come from Lawrence or not. It's called Walking in Lawrence. When I was growing up in Lawrence, I learned to walk everywhere. The bus took too long and was slow. When I was a teen, my favorite place was Broadway. That's where the movie theaters were. My favorite theater was the Palace. I thought it had class before I really knew what class was. I would meet my friends along the way and we would walk in groups. But when I got older and had the courage, I would ask a girl to meet me there. I was determined one Saturday in winter to get my first kiss. I studied under two older teens with their slick back hair and gold chains with Italian horns, who with a piece of chalk outlined the sexual history of mankind on the alley wall behind my grandfather's barber shop on Newbury Street. There were 5 distinct moves to a first kiss: the yawn, the arm stretch, the squeeze, the whisper, and the kiss. I rehearsed these moves over and over, and then I acted. I called Patricia, the girl I had met at a party a couple of weeks before. I was shaking when I had called the phone number she had written on a napkin that night. She said yes, and her mother dropped her off in front of the theater. And I said all the polite things you say to a girl's mother. And soon 2 awkward teens were alone. I heard she had a crush on me, so at first it was easy for us to talk about school. We went to Louis Pearl's next door to stock up on candy and popcorn. His prices were much cheaper than the theater, and I paid for everything, maybe showing off a bit, hoping my Brut cologne wasn't too much. We stuffed our winter coats with our snacks and snuck everything into the theater with ease. And halfway through Mary Poppins, I made my first moves. The yawn, the arm stretch, the squeeze, then came the whisper and the kiss. And it worked. It all worked perfectly. And for a few minutes, I never felt so happy. Her mother picked her up after the movie, and Patricia and I looked at each other in a special way as she was about to be whisked away. I turned down a ride and walked home in the newly arrived snow. It was just a perfect afternoon as the sun set over the Merrimack River. I made my way quickly over the Falls Bridge to beat the snow home. I watched the falls for a while, happy in a new way I'd never known before. Soon after came the CYO dances at St. Pat's Parish Center. Always packed on a Saturday night. I remember the slow dances best, with the chaperoning priest telling us to make space for the Holy Ghost, as Town Without Pity and Gene Pitney screamed over the speakers. We were all shy back then, and some girls said yes, some said no, but we were innocent and no one got hurt. And then at the end of the night, we would make 2 long lines, and one by one, we would dance down the middle with our best moves as the music was played nice and loud. I remember the older cool guys who would jump and do splits and handstands and floor bounces and as the music played, full of confidence in their own manhood, combining sexy street kid and Elvis all together. After the dance, we'd head to Joe's Bungalow and have a chicken bob and fries. And the words, "I'll pay it back next week honest," were said 100 times in the line outside. And then down to the rail yards for the Saturday night obligatory fight. Every Saturday was the same, and then it changed. 3 years later, the same cool dancing kids, street kids, were asked to shoot and kill in Vietnam, a country they didn't even know existed, as they made their moves on the dance floor that night. The draft was big in Lawrence. It was a working-class war by design, and Lawrence had plenty to choose from. Some enlisted thinking to face the inevitable was better. Joe's Bungalow's kid, a Marine PFC Joe Giles Jr., was the first from Lawrence to be killed. We saw his picture up on the bungalow's wall as sadness filled the place until it closed. Marine Corporal Greg Kent, panel 46, E-line 55 on the black wall, a Lawrence High track star with scores of colleges after him, enlisted because it was the right thing to do. He turned down the Olympics to go into battle with his unit. He was killed by rocket fire in '68. They named the track at the stadium after him, but no one saw the life he could have lived, and no one even today can explain why he died. Every time I came home from college, some friend or acquaintance was gone off to Nam. The fear of the war and the fear of the draft filled every guy's heart in Lawrence. When college was over, you were 1A again. Fear filled every day back then. When my deferment was about to end after graduation, a draft lottery was announced. I sat in an empty coffee shop late at night at Villanova to watch the dates of birthdays roll in a bingo tumbler. It was literally a bingo game of life and death. I stayed until my own birthday was called, the number 365. I never told anyone that number after that night. Lawrence drafted up to number 85 that year. And so the draft ended and Vietnam crashed and burned, with 58,000 men dead in an uncertain war that may have not had real meaning. The young people of Lawrence still joined the military after Nam. It is still a good choice in a blue-collar city. And so the wars continue to take their toll, the Gulf War, the Iraq War, Afghanistan. Army Staff Sergeant Alex Jimenez was ambushed in Operation Iraqi Freedom, while his father, Andy, prayed desperately at Our Lady of Altagracia in the Dominican Republic for him to come home. He wanted them to pray there together. Alex promised to fight for his country. When he died for his country, they named a bridge after him. A brave Marine sergeant named Johanny Rosario Pachado lost her life after helping babies, women, and children escape from Afghanistan. She was blown apart by a suicide bomber after she told her commander that a woman being trampled to death outside the airport needed her, sir. After she led so many people to freedom, she was now gone forever. She became another on a long list of 777 dead heroes who once walked the streets of Lawrence. Over the years, Lawrence was paying that price for another war that attacked the city from within. The war on drugs was really the drug war on Lawrence. Drugs created an ongoing battlefield within the city. The government drug czar from President George H.W. Bush, William Bennett, said in a speech at Bishop's Restaurant that we had won the war on drugs when drug dealing completely surrounded the restaurant's neighborhoods and police with guns were on the roof protecting those who came to eat there. Drug trafficking of all kinds came first, then cocaine, then heroin, and now fentanyl. There is a killing or drug arrest nearly every day in the city. It seems every day an overdose or drug-related shooting takes place. The word spreads the real truth in it in the city, not the newspaper. This war cannot be won because it changes every day. But the city stays alive. Its population of immigrants has completely changed over the years. The Catholic churches of the original immigrants are now half full, but the Hispanic churches are filled and ring out with song and dance every Sunday. My Sunday morning walk still allows me to smell the foods of many cultures from the hundreds of tenements that surround me. Lawrence will fight this war and hopefully will stay strong. The working class has kept this city alive since it was created. It survived throughout all the wars. The mills are a symbol to the power and strength of the working class in Lawrence. I feel that as long as the church bells still ring in this beautiful city, it will become the home of many more heroes to come. The working class will always have a home here. Heroes will always come from here. And I will continue to be walking in Lawrence. Those moves work if you ever want to use it for a first kiss. Those moves work. I can't say enough of thanks to everyone here tonight, for Thomas Spitaleri and for Terry Gates for coming. And just remember the truth. We say the truth tonight and we hear it. Then it goes to the newspaper and other people read it. Then it goes on television with local cable access, and that's going to hear it. They're going to hear it more. And then it's going to go on YouTube and more people are going to hear it. All right, I got a call from my cousin who lives out of town who saw me on YouTube from something from 5 years ago. People watch it. So if you sacrifice tonight to come here and speak the truth, it's going to spread. So I humbly want to thank everyone for doing that for us tonight and wish you a good night. Thank you for coming.